Welcome to wrap up. So 2-2 overall. Played against two blue-white decks. Took the W against the typical list. Lost to the kind of resto based list, Resto Kitchen Finks list. Took a loss to Affinity that was not the deck's fault, and rather I think I punted at the end. Obviously, we discussed that a little bit already, but if I had chewered that plating instead of that Ravager, I think I would have lived. Obviously, my opponent had a mystery card, so that's not certainly the case, but I think regardless, it would have been better for me to have done that. So that's certainly on me, not the deck. And then we did take that W against the Jeskai Delver deck, which surely you're not going to see a lot of, but it's there. Modern's a wide format. You never know. As far as the list in particular is concerned, I don't love some of the aspects of it. I don't think the white splash is really worth it here. And like I said, if anything, maybe a Kessig, but honestly, I think you're better off just playing more colored mana sources. I just don't think it's worth having that colorless mana source. But if you really insist on having a utility land, I think Kessig's just where you're going to be. I'm not necessarily saying I don't want these ley lines, but I'm okay with giving up hard casting them. I really don't think that's a huge detriment. I think I'm okay with just not being able to cast these. Other elements of the list, I mean, not having Brindabor is kind of weird, but obviously I think the ley lines do that job, so that's fine. No main deck Shriekmaws. Maybe we want to find room for those, but I honestly kind of like this Fairy Macabre. I think the Carry Zevs is nice. It's an element we haven't had before, but it may be a little too cute. Wouldn't necessarily mind a second Archfiend, but I actually kind of like one. Those are really the places where I could see you making changes to the list. Mostly in that mana base, though. It's just, I really don't think it's worth it. I've seen some lists that are like really heavy on Buddy lands. Not sure I want to do that either. It makes it harder for you to play around Blood Moon. I liked the basic mountain more than I thought I would, rather. It was helpful for me more often than I thought it would be. So maybe one of each basic is still fine. But I wouldn't mind just having more fetch lands even. Yeah, I care about my life total, of course, but Blood Moon is a problem, right? We really only have these 5. Kind of hard for us to get a basic forest, which is kind of silly considering that our outs to Blood Moon are green. We're going to have Crossing Grips and Beast Withins and stuff like that. So I wouldn't really mind having more fetch lands. But the Buddy lands is the other way to pursue. You could have more Blooming Marsh, some Copperline Gorges, whatever. I really don't think the mana in this deck is very... it doesn't require a lot of you, which I think is why this person has gone with the white splash. I just think at the end of the day, it's not really worth it. These lands got in the way more often than they were helpful by a wide margin. And while I only have whatever, like 20 matches, I still think that will continue to be true, even once you get a larger and larger number of matches. I think the sideboard is mostly pretty reasonable. The additional Macabres are necessary. Shriekmaws are necessary. Definitely need these Chewers and Traps. And then the Crossing Grip and the extra Beast Within seem to be pretty reasonable as kind of catch-alls for the things that you don't like. I don't know that you could really have more Crossing Grips or Beast Withins than this. So, yeah, I think that's kind of reasonable. To go back to the mana-based discussion as well, there are some lists that have experimented with playing Blood Moon in the main. I think at the point you're doing that, you probably want the 4th Simian Spirit Guide as well. And obviously that requires a dramatic shift in your mana base towards a lot more fetch lands that can help you find Mountain and Swamp. So definitely some Verdants would need to be present here to really enable that. And it would be an interesting tweak, but I think that's not unreasonable as well. That's definitely something to pursue. It's nice that you'll get some additional free wins when maybe your living end isn't good. You can get some free wins off your Blood Moon. It's close to the same kind of Fulminator Mage plan. Again, it can get tough to find room, right? Like maybe you're shaving Carry Zevs, a Macabre. Maybe you're just off these Architects even, just have slightly less Cyclers. But either way, that's still only 4 slots. You probably end up having to shave a Dread. Maybe you don't get to play 2 Beast Withins, but I think that's just kind of a requirement to whatever random stuff might be getting in your way. maybe you don't need that when you also have the Blood Moons, yada yada, but it would look like you'd be cutting from these cards, right? These are like your potential cuts for like 4th Simian Spirit Guide and Blood Moon, and that's certainly something that you could pursue. But first and foremost, before necessarily trying anything particularly exciting, I would just go back to the Jund Mana base. And I may play this more on my stream coming up here in the future, so perhaps that's something that you can see there. And maybe I'll have more opinions on it then in the future, but that's kind of where I'm at right now, and we'll see where I might want to go with it moving forward. But either way, I appreciate you your watching and the support that you're giving us here on Modern Nexus, so thanks a bunch for that, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Have a good one.